Hello, welcome to Jesus TV. This is another episode of Suffer Well, Healed by His Stripes. Jesus last night started me on a fast. It's a wellness fast. So I'm fasting from wellness. I bet everyone here has had a fast from feeling well. And so I decided this morning, because I could kind of hear Jesus, he said, yes, you can worship me when you're feeling well. That's good. Now let's see how you do when you're not feeling well. And it's been a very good fast. It's been one of my best fasts ever. We have food fasts, we have wellness fasts. Sometimes we can fast from sins. And so I guess that's part of the tradition of what they call Lent in our brothers and sisters Catholic tradition. Uh, and I did notice that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints recently, they didn't call it Lent. Oh, heaven forbid, no, but they did introduce the topic and ask people to fast from something. I can't remember exactly the context, but we are here with Emily Powell and Jonathan McCormick, and we want to tell you where the websites are that you can go to our respective stuff. We'll start with that. I'll tell you where Jesus has me go every day. www.getmorejesus.com. Jonathan and then Emily.
So my website is thetracklesspath.com.
My website is emilypowellart.com.
Excellent. Okay. Well, with that, I ended up in the emergency room yesterday. Don't pick your nose. It could turn out not well. So I was punished for picking my nose, but really, it's a divine chicane, which is an obstacle course Jesus sets up. And I recognized it. It took me a few hours to recognize it. But I started recognizing, yeah, you want me to practice loving on you while I'm feeling poor. But Emily said, well, we could have canceled the day, but that's not what I wanted. That's not what Jesus inside me wanted. This is so I imagine Jesus hearing me. And while I'm talking about that, about ready to turn the talking stick over to Jonathan and Emily, I want to introduce the topic that will just kind of guide our thoughts. Last time we talked about a phrase that Jesus has me use often. When I refer to him, in posts and so forth, I'll often refer to him as my imaginary friend who is real, who is Jesus. Sometimes I'll say, my imaginary friend who is real. No, my imaginary friend who is real, who is my therapist, who is Jesus. And that last one is probably what some people think, well, I'm glad you have a therapist. And I do. And he's the best therapist in the world. And he punched me in the nose, metaphorically, not literally. And so that was to get my attention. But when I talk about imagining Jesus, and even like punch in the nose, you're like, oh, don't say that Jesus punched you in the nose. You picked your nose. And so what I'm doing is what people would call reimagining my life, and I'm giving it new interpretation. And I would say, and I believe, that Jesus inspires my interpretations, that I reach out with my heart, and my heart's been in the process of change. I've been trying to be like a little child. And so one of the things that's come over me, and I was born kind of like a little child, like maybe we all are, but I will say pretty playful things. And so it was quite natural when I got born again, and I was trying to repent of being a spaz. Jesus says, Greg, you're a spaz, and I love you. And I need you to be a super spaz. Can you imagine that? He didn't say stop being a spaz. He said, I need you to be a super spaz. which kind of means he needs me to spaz out in the way that's prescribed by him. But he lets me be a lot of who I am and have always been. And he gave me a when I this was before I got born again in 2015. He gave me a vision, kind of. It was an audio recording that I was listening to in the car. This was when I was in my 30s, I believe. And I imagined myself driving that car and light shining in, but I can't remember if it was, but I know I was driving in the car, I think headed to go teach a job in Texas. And I was listening to this audio recording of my family doing family hub evening when I was like 5 years old. And when that played out, I laughed because I saw, or I heard myself interacting with my mother. And I won't go into the details of it. You ask me sometime. But it was funny. But way more than being funny, it was like, oh my goodness, I was born like this. I was always a spaz because I was spazzing out. And, you know, I'm sure Jim Carrey was doing the same thing when he was 5 years old. And Robin Williams, you'd say, well, those were the spazzes. So those are my brothers, the spazzes. When I got born again, lo and behold, Jesus goes, I like spazzes. I like Greg. I like Tigger in the 100-Acre Woods. He's bouncy, trouncy, fun, fun, fun. And like, yeah, but he's not very, what you would call religious. You know, that's not the right tenor. And that is true, especially since I wasn't born into an evangelical family. I was born into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints family. And we tend to, if you had to characterize that by, you know, the evangelicals and the holy rollers are kind of like Tigger, and it looks quite inappropriate to a lot of LDS. Not all LDS, not me, because I've gone to holy rollers and evangelicals. I'm like, oh, okay, this is different. This is not how we worship, but there's something in here for me. Okay, so I have a different worship style. And I'm going to wrap this up now because I can feel my nose reminding me you don't have the talking stick any longer, Greg. So I'll wrap this up by making the bridge. So when Emily was painting last time, I used that phrase, Jesus, my imaginary friend who is real. And I loved that the interaction was she kind of called me out on it. She said, in a very delicate way, or just responded. She said something to the effect, Jesus to me is real. And I realized she had missed the real part, which is what oftentimes people do when you're bouncy, trouncy, fun, fun, fun. You might add some kind of caveat at the end of your statement, but people at church would say, no, Greg, you had me, or in other words, you didn't have me from imaginary friend. And so they don't hear the next part that tempers. Oh, so he's imaginary, but he's real. Okay. And that is what I needed, okay, when I was born again, because of how I am. I'm quite an intellectual, which is a curse and a blessing. And it's been mostly a curse, honestly, throughout my life, but it's who I was. And Jesus needed me to swing the other way. And so now I could talk to Jesus and say, oh, you need me to be a performance artist? Seriously? Because that's who I've always been. You don't need me to be Bruce R. McConkie doctrinaire. And so those are understandings that have come to me. And he says, of course, I need you to be a doctrinaire, but just not very often. I don't need you to be an intellectual, just not very often. I need you to worship me with your authentic style, which is kind of bouncy, trouncy, fun, fun, fun. So when she responded to that, my heart felt with delight, because sometimes I like rejection, but that's not the best thing. I like engagement, that Emily is a good listener. I love that, because you can tell she picked up on what I said. So it was just like, that phrase has come out of my mouth so fast, it could just be, she's like, oh, well, that was weird to say, but she caught it. And I'm like, whoo, she's a good listener. But here's the fun thing, and I'm going to end now. Her painting that she was doing at the time was starting to be red and stuff, and she was drizzling it. And I'm like, oh, because it looked like this painting, so nice. Then she starts drizzling these round circles, like, uh-oh, because I was just amazed at it. And then, but then I started seeing it, like, wow, those circles work. And she ended up titling that painting "Imagine Jesus," because then in that last episode we had a conversation about that, so she understood what that meant. And then she had a wonderful comment that I'll always remember. She reflected back on her children and how she interacts with them, in terms of explaining Jesus to them. And I can't remember exactly words. You'll have to say it because I'm about ready to shut down the talking stick here, Emily. But it was something to the effect that she recognized that she, whatever the words were, that she kind of does the same thing with her kids, that they're going to have to, because one of the big elephants in the room with Jesus is he's invisible. He's not here, and you're trying to recognize his presence. That's messy. And so, last comment. I come on here, my face looks kind of messy. And I love that Emily's work has been described by herself. The messy Jesuses, or whatever that is, I'm not using the right terminology, but she's recognizing the mess of life. And so I thought it apropos to come full Monty. Yeah, this is how I look. And I'm actually going to check out, because this probably grosses people out. My wife would not approve of what I'm doing right now. But Jesus said, yeah, you need to show up like you are right there. And then you need to check out, because people want to focus not on poor Greg and his nose. They want to focus on Emily's. And so I want to listen to Jonathan and Emily talk about whatever they want to talk about. But the theme before we started, Emily was kind of pointing, yeah, let's talk about Imagine Jesus. I'd like to know her thoughts about it. And Jonathan, I might come back and talk, but I'm going to let the talking stick go now as I sign off of my video. Okay, go for it, guys.
You have any thoughts, Emily?
I actually had a thought before all of that. Greg, well, I had a question for Greg. I don't know if he feels up to it, but because he said he was doing a wellness fast, and I was just curious what he meant by that.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, Jesus will. That
was my first question. That was all.
No, let me answer that question. So Jesus will oftentimes give me new phrases and so forth, and new understandings. That's what he does to all of us. He kind of speaks in our language. And I'm like, that just popped into my head. I'm like, because I don't feel well. And oh yeah, because when I woke up from my Jesus nap today, I thought, you know what I feel like right now? I feel like I've been fasting. Because see, fasting, when I'm going without food, food is one of my favorite things in life. And when I'm going without food, you know what it feels like? My body feels like it's not well, because I'm actually a food addict, especially a candy addict, or I used to be. Hi, I'm Greg Muller, and I'm a candy addict. Jesus has taken away all junk food from me because I let him. He said, you can eat it, go ahead. But you asked to be delivered of 60 pounds. That's a big ask. Most people can't do that. And of course, I had tried and I tried. And then I was done trying. I'm like, I have a savior. Why not have him take away all this 60 pounds? And I wish he used his magic wand and just turned me into a skinny guy that doesn't like to eat too much. But Jesus didn't. He had me move more, eat less, but also worship him through the whole process of losing weight. In fact, when I woke up from my Jesus nap, I thought, is this the way that we start our fast? Because I wasn't planning on fasting today. And but yeah, I think that maybe this is partly that. But Emily asked about that phrase, and it was tied, of course, to this program, Suffer Well. And one way we could suffer well is by the discipline of not being comfortable. So that's what the when I spoke with Jesus about how will Zion be built, he's got much to say on the topic to me. But one of the ways, the principal ways he said is fasting and prayer, and that's kind of scriptural. And fasting, what he meant was much wider than just going without food. He says that people will fast, so they'll fast from their culture, they'll fast from their ways of doing things. They'll fast essentially from Babylon. If you had a culture named Babylon, it was trending Antichrist, which ours is, and it was trending all is well in Zion, yea, Zion prospereth, and you wanted to fast from that, well, it would not be well with you because if you live in that society, then everything feeds you by attending to the things that they attend to. When in Greece, do as Greece, render to Caesar's what's Caesar's. And if you don't render to Caesar, then Caesar's not going to pay you. He's not going, unless you have some kind of magic God that you wake up every day and there's manna outside. It is not going to be well with your body. But you might tell yourself a little song, it is well with my soul. You might acknowledge in that song, okay, and should we die, or that we've got these trials, but we move along singing songs of Zion. And so feeling not well, or to tie it to your theme that you've introduced to my life, Emily, to having episodes where your life is so messy and uncomfortable, can be times where you're fasting from because I remember when I got born again, I had anxiety, depression, mania, anxiety, and depression, kind of in that order. And I'll bet that's probably when people are given birth. They act a little manic. Oh, that hurts. The manic, depression, anxiety. So yeah, it was part of the process. But I remember when I had the anxiety phase. Oh, that was so bad. That hurt so bad that I have empathy for anybody who's going through anxiety. Because when I had that, it was staying with me all day long. And the times when God would let it up a little bit, I would go, oh, thank you, Jesus. Because to feel normal, not to feel spectacular, to feel normal, when you're having that level of anxiety, even for just a moment, it feels so good. And you do that with medicine. So they gave me some medicine. You can get hooked on that medicine because that medicine would take me to feeling normal, not like I'm high, just feeling like normal, like I have my whole life. So that anxiety was an example of a fast. Greg, you're going to take a fast from sanity was one of them. Okay. So Greg's a sane person. And my wife would say, well, you always been a little crazy, but no, I went manic. I had to go to the emergency room. I never had an experience like that in my life, even though I was born kind of spazzy and move fast and so forth. But God revved it up, and I had a holiday from sanity, which was not fun. Some people enjoy their mania. I didn't. I laughed and did weird stuff, but no, there's a part of me is like, it is not well with my soul. It even felt like that. So some people are taking and fasting from sanity, and it's kind of that they would say, well, if I'm fasting from sanity, then this is a forced fast because I don't want it. And they would be correct. Jesus takes us on what's called a divine chicane. A chicane is a serpentine path, and it can be designed, and it often is designed in our society, the ones where people know what a chicane is, by engineers and architects who need traffic to slow down. So they put turns, a series of turns, and then what that does is it just naturally slows you down. And so that's really what God did, is he put me on a path that I could no longer rely on my intellectual prowess, because it just came out like a foolish nonsense, and which had consequences. I lost some of my work. I'm a consultant. So I was fasting from sanity. Then I was fasting from feeling okay. That was the anxiety part, feeling normal, not feeling fearful. Because I've been, you can say, wow, Greg's pretty fearless. And that's just true. Throughout my life, I've been pretty brave, and I've had to work at that. But oh, I was full of anxiety, which of course is rooted around fear. That's why it's so horrible. It's like the direct opposite of faith, and it's uncomfortable. So then depression, I was fasting from feeling happy. I'm a happy person. Well, do you want to feel like what it feels like to be an unhappy person? And I'd only experienced that one other time. God gave me a window. I dated this one girl who about took her life. And the next day, this was like I was 16 or 17. The next day, I was mowing lawns, doing some handyman stuff. And all of a sudden, God opened this window, and for about 4 hours, well, it wasn't even that long, maybe 2 hours, I felt the depression that she felt, I think. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this feels so terrible. And um, and so when I got born again, he let me feel what other people feel all the time. And I feel it's like, oh my goodness, chronic depression, chronic anxiety. Uh, woo, those get your attention. And they can also destroy your attention. So what God is trying to do is show me how to convert fear into faith, convert depression, convert a bloody nose into an opportunity to worship him under pressure. Because he says, Greg, a lot of people can worship me when the pressure's not on. But what you need to learn how to do is when the pressure's on, worship me. And then you'll see, which I did this morning, some of the best treasures are given to us under those conditions. So you have Joseph Smith in Liberty Jail. You want to read the best part of the Doctrine and Covenants? It came from that place. And so back to that phrase, fasting from wellness. Yeah, that was just a few minutes before I got on. And it kind of sounded funny to me, but there, because I wasn't familiar with it, but it's like, oh yeah, I see how it ties into this suffer well, healed by his stripes, the words of Isaiah, and also the title of this television program. And so that's where that came from. That's the long story of where that came from, Emily.
Wow. Interesting hearing about. So you don't usually have anxiety and depression. Is that
No.
kind of what I thought? Is that not true, or it just got worse? I'm just trying to understand.
No, he took it away. I didn't have it till my born again experience in 2015. Other than that one instance of depression, I had not. But I had taken care of people. My wife she's had chronic suffering from that. Not currently, but she's had it for years, and so I empathized with that, but not anything like I could now. So yeah, personally, that's Jesus isn't having me carry that cross right now. I won't be surprised if he brings it back so I could practice doing well under depression or doing well under anxiety. That's up to him. I obviously I don't control these things like this nosebleed. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm someone that has like depression and anxiety, and I always have pretty major depression and anxiety. And in fact, that was part of my reason for starting this Messy Jesus series. When I first started these, I would only create them when I was stressed, and I used it as like a coping technique. So what I was trying to do was take something that was really negative and hard in my life, and I was trying to see if I could make something beautiful or something good out of it with these.
Awesome.
So that was part of, so for example, when I was extra stressed, so that's why I painted a lot of these when I was in grad school, is what I like to say. Like there was a couple weeks, grad school can be really hard. And there was a couple weeks there where I had I had to write like a 40-page paper that was like referenced in 2 weeks. That was part of my grad program. Like you had 2 weeks and they gave you like some test questions and you had to like reference it and write. And I also painted 40 paintings during those 2 weeks because I had so much anxiety
Wow.
over it. And so it's just kind of interesting to see, like I said before, like I feel like although I would never choose to have anxiety and depression, that's with ADHD. I got a lot of stuff, sensory stuff. My poor kids do too. My family, it's just it's there. Anyways, it can help me relate to a lot of people, and it helps me to say like, hey, I understand, and it's okay, and it's gonna get better. Like when I know others that are going through things, like we all have these moments or times. Like I have times where my anxiety is worse, and times when it's not as bad, and a lot of it has to do with just what's going on in life. But part of it for me is like I just can't sit in it because if I sit in it, I just get kind of stuck. And it's pretty easy to get stuck. For example, just stuck sitting down and watching TV or, just kind of stuck in my own head, I guess you could say.
Yes.
And that's just some of my thoughts with that is like sometimes I just need motivation. Like I need purpose and reason, and I think everyone does. And so it's one of the reasons that I chose to become a teacher. And actually that I stayed a teacher even when it was really hard. It has times where it's really hard, but for me, teaching is like a coping technique. Like it's something that gets me out of myself and gets me out of my problems, and it gets me to where, there's a lot of things going on, and some things are really hard. But when I'm teaching, there's just like little things for me to focus on. If that makes sense.
It does.
Those are just what's on my mind right now. What about you, Jonathan?
Oh, well, it's interesting that this is the subject of the day. I have felt absolutely horrible today. Just a few minutes before before this all started, in fact, I tried to call Greg and tell him I wasn't gonna come today. And he didn't pick up the phone. And then I realized it was time, and I thought, I'll just go ahead and do it. And I thought maybe it'll make me feel better. And I do feel better already. But it's strange. It's like I'll have these days of when I saw Greg and I heard what had happened and everything. I was like, oh my gosh, what a loser! It's like Greg gets on here with his nose like having gone to the emergency room, and I'm just feeling depressed today. And I have a heart condition, and my heart condition was acting up, and it causes me to feel more. It affects my mind, you could say. Whenever it's flopping around like a frog in my chest, it makes me feel weird. But yeah, it's just seeing that that's the topic of the day. It's like it's so strange. It's like after all this time, after all this walk, you could say a walk with the Lord, it's like it's strange to me that I still have this thing come up. Um, uh, just feeling worthless in some ways. It's like that I should be further along, that I should be, it's like I write and there's so little published of the things that are in my heart. And sometimes I'll get stressed about that. And then my health is such that I'll start to, I'll have, where I wonder how much longer I have. And that makes me feel depressed because it's like the thought that I've gone through this kind of like Gethsemane experience, and that I haven't been able to get it on paper, is just feels like I'll be a waste, and And um, so it's just kind of strange. I don't know what the commentary is really, as we're talking about it today. I don't know why God is like kind of primed this episode, I guess, to talk about this. I guess the title of this series that Greg titled is Suffering Well. It's like, it's like, but this is, it's all we have to give. It's like we have to serve, we have to serve God out of our brokenness. And I wish, like your series with the paintings, I wish it was not so messy. And I know that things would likely have, excuse me, turned out differently in my own life with people I love if I wasn't so messy, if I could have held things together at critical times. But for whatever reason, there's certain aspects of my life that are like, they only run on like 25%. It's like, and things that other people find easy, I find really difficult. And of course, there's things that other people find impossible that are second nature to me, but it often feels like those things, uh, they're not wanted by the many, at least at this point. So, so you just have to be grateful for, I think we have to be grateful for what we are, because what we are is all we have to, like Greg's talked about, we're all kind of living parables, it's like our lives are living parables. And it's like we're telling a story that Christ wanted to be told. It's like that's why he sent a Greg to the world and a Jonathan and an Emily and everyone, is that story, for as flawed and broken as it is an integral part of the whole, an integral part of the whole. And I was just talking with a friend last night and talking about the idea. Mormons have this idea of that there's a celestial kingdom, and I think most Christians do get the idea. There's talk of like the third heaven. Paul says he went to the third heaven, and there's this idea that I heard a near-death experience recently where the guy said he was told to act out of the third heaven, as if he were in the third heaven. And there's this idea that it's like that we're all one thing there. We're all one thing. It's like, and we all share. It's almost like I wonder if it's a place where um, we can finally see how all of our experiences are important to create this thing that God wants to create in the resurrection. That's something that's more than our individual experiences. It's something that can only come together through maybe the way that Christ sees us, and that it will be all needed there and all appreciated and loved. And maybe we can taste of it ahead of time, like we can live there. That's what we can do. Like we can choose the kingdom. We can choose, like when everything goes wrong, we can choose not to lash back at the world, but to retreat to Zion, to retreat into the sacred silent place. We suffer well our trials, and the place where Christ meets us. Um, and the more we can do that, I think the more that the earth gets better, because that means we create less heartache in others by I guess our acceptance of it all. of just quieting down into what we are, and believing that Christ has a place in his heart for us, and for everyone else too. It's like it's a revolutionary idea. I mean, it's what Christ came to convey, I think, to us. So anyways, those are a couple thoughts about it. But
well, it just reminds me kind of like, that the purpose of life is to become like Jesus. And I believe that Jesus can say he understands because he really has been through everything. I've heard that I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Pretty much the gist is like, you can't, if you want to come face to face with Jesus and have like a second comforter type of experience, you got to be prepared to go through hard things, because it's in those moments when you really seek him, and like, everything we go through can bring us closer to him, but it's just the whole, like it's the whole purpose is just to go through things that really totally suck, and but we've never been told like it's going to be easy.
Well, and what Jesus asks for, he assists with. So Jesus is our comforter and our savior. So he has a big ask. This is the fundamental kind of doctrine. What he requires of us is some ways so simple, but it's a big ask. I'll read a scripture from the Book of Mormon that encapsulates this. This is Jesus talking. And ye shall offer for a sacrifice. So he's referencing, of course, these people who lived the law of Moses, and they'd say like, oh, I've done bad stuff. Okay, well, go take one of your favorite lambs, the most pure lamb, and kill it. Like, oh, okay. So he's fulfilling the law when he gets on the cross. That's why he says, take up your cross and learn of me. So in this scripture, that's what that reference is. And ye shall offer for a sacrifice unto me a broken heart and a contrite spirit. And whoso cometh unto me with a broken heart, him will I baptize with fire and the Holy Ghost. 3 Nephi 9, 19 through 20. And so, like, I teared up when Emily was talking. I teared up when Jonathan was talking. Had I not been on my wellness fast, I may not have teared up. I might have been moved inside. But one of the things that happens when you have difficult experiences, Jesus enlarges your memory. You can even remember and have an empathy for people like, oh, I remember what that felt like. So Emily said that she's doing this all the time. Whew, that touched something inside me. And I know that Jonathan does. And then to see the beauty. So what you can't see in this episode, so like me watching Emily, I was focused on your fingers. I'm like, I had to point out to people, do you see how she's trying to get along as an artist? Where's her brush? Can't she afford a brush? And so people, I'm gonna have to donate some money so she can get a brush. So there'd be well-meaning people who are trying to help her, but they would not understand that she's been called to paint in a new way that's broken, and it's part of her cross, but it gives expression to what she has to do every day through life. And so I said that Jesus will assist us. He does, and he does it in ways that are not as the world giveth. So the peace he says in this scripture, he's going to give the fire, which is an awesome gift, because the second comforter is when he comes and sees you in some form. And I guess that's got to be super comforting, I haven't had that, but I did have the first fire, which is getting born again in 2015. And it has left me comforted, more comforted. That's why I say he's my therapist, my imaginary friend who's real, who is my therapist, who is Jesus. I've found comfort from issues I've had throughout my whole life. He went inside me and did something with his magic wand, kind of. And so I'm often saying Jesus doesn't like to use his magic wand very often, which is pretty much true. He'll have us build Zion one stone, and upon another, they'll probably have us give it up and go do that again. That's a good take. But he helps us give that thing that he wants. Jesus, I want to offer you a sacrifice, but I can't get myself to do it. I've got my favorite lamb here, and I just don't want to give it up. But can you hear me? I don't believe, but I desire to believe. He'll go, that's good enough. And the next thing you know, your hand is on this knife, and it seems like you lost your mind. You've just slit the throat of your favorite lamb. And you realize I couldn't have done that without intervention. And that's what I do know, like today during my wellness fast. I couldn't, the kind of revelations he's given me today, he said, how I spoke of opening the windows of heaven and pouring you down a blessing. I said, yeah. He says, a lot of the blessings I pour down are in difficult circumstances. And a lot of times people don't want to put their cup out. Oh, it's raining. Let me get some of that rain. It's finally raining. They're sick. They don't want to do that. And he says they're just not trained to do that. They don't trust that that's when the best things are going to come. But I'm glad Jonathan's on, because Jonathan just told us, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay hunkered. But Jesus, I heard the phone go off. I can tell you the rest of the story. I heard the phone go off, and I thought, that's Emily or Jonathan, probably. I didn't know. I didn't have time because I sent the Zoom link and I had to hustle on down to the cowboy place where I'm at. And so Jesus intervened. I have to believe. I don't have to believe. I choose to believe. But our difficult circumstances, to tie it back, are meant to help us do that thing, which is really hard. Most people don't want their heart broken. The heart kind of represents like, you can take my arm, you can take my leg, you can even take an eye. But, if you took my heart, then I'm not going to be me anymore. And that's kind of how I conceive of what happened when I got born again. I opened up my hard heart enough that he got in, and then he gave me what I'm calling more Jesus, www.getmorejesus. I like that. I mean, that was hard, but I like it. And I became addicted to it. So I'm like, this is more craziness. I'm like Jesus crazy. I want Jesus like successful people, hugely successful people in Babylon want more money. I'm thinking about him all the time. I laugh at that. I think this seems so wrong, but it's so right for me. But I needed that assist. And so he, of course, will make it difficult for us. He'll make us well, and then we'll go back to sleep. Oh, thank you, Jesus. I have my blanket. I have enough food in my tummy. I'll go to sleep. And then that's why he has to go, okay, do you want me to do that one thing? Not really. Well, I'm going to. And then he has some level of control of the weather, of our health. In fact, some would argue he has strong control of the elements. He might purpose some things and he might permit others, but tell you what, whether I let my grandson, I permit him to go walk out and get hit by a truck, or whether I push him out there so he can get hit by a truck, to me, it's kind of the same, Jesus. So if you allow certain things to happen, like Emily to wake up every day with anxiety, I'm going to have to say you permit that or purpose it, and it doesn't really matter. I'm just a human, and I don't get it other than what I just told you. he has a divine purpose. And that's a Jesus story. You could tell a much less sunny story about that. I just don't desire to. I'm into having an imagination, like Jonathan said, telling a different story. When I got born again, that's what he kind of said. Greg, you're going to tell a different story. And it's going to remind you of the primary song. Tell me the stories of Jesus I long to hear. I want to hear a song about me, like Jonathan says. Okay, Jesus, I'll tell you a story. He goes, no, I want you to act it out every day. And by the way, I'm not the only one listening. So that's why we have Jesus TV. I imagine that we have a TV station, and this helps me imagine it. Look, you're on Jesus TV. You're watching Jesus TV. Well, that looks like a madman. That looks like somebody who was told by Jesus, go forth as a fool to go forth wise. And you know what? When Emily came along, I started feeling more wise. When Jonathan, before that, he started sharing his poems. So Jonathan hasn't spoken to this, but one of the episodes you heard, if you've been watching all these episodes, Jonathan, with tears in his eyes and a cry, spoke of where his poetry comes. And it's prophetic poetry. I recognize it because it was saying some of the same things Jesus was telling me. These are like secrets of the universe, and Jonathan's got them inside his poems. Then we do that episode, and when he said that, I knew exactly where those poems come from. The same place as that beautiful thing that Emily just showed us. I'm like, oh my goodness, Jesus. Anyways, any thoughts, guys?
Well, I have to say something first. First off, nobody has to send me brushes. I have so many paint brushes. It's a bit insane. I probably have hundreds. Before I started painting this way, I actually used to get on and I would just like noodle. I call it noodling. But you have like a tiny little brush and you just paint like every little detail like that. And I think I just needed to loosen up. And I think it's kind of the same way like religiously for me. I needed to stop thinking everything had to be an exact certain prescribed way. Like I've always been someone that I see things as black and white, and gray is really hard for me. And so like I used to always believe like, oh, if I don't do all of these things exactly this way, then I'm not worthy of the love of God, or I can't have Jesus in my life. Or like I used to believe like, oh, I made a mistake, therefore God doesn't love me, therefore he can't be with me. And I've through painting this series, but also just through life and the things that life stuff, just life challenges, I come to see more and more that Jesus again is always there. His presence is in those moments. It's not a question of like his presence is with us if we desire to seek him. It's not so much like, oh, I did this wrong or I did this way, therefore I'm not worthy. Like I think that's a shaming device, and I think it's wrong to say that. And that's Emily talking, I guess. But that's what works for me is I just had to let go of that idea of perfectionism, of just trying to always be perfect, and instead embrace the idea of I'm not perfect, but that's how I find Jesus is through my imperfection, through the things that go absolutely wrong.
Well,
yeah, go ahead. I'm done.
I wish in a lot of ways that I could let go in that way. I'm trying to. I really do have a thing of my stories are coming along better. I had a night the other night when an old story, some clarity came, and I just wrote it down, and it's been a long time unwinding. I feel like in a way it's like I think in many ways I've been like you. I'm very uptight in some ways. Like I have this feeling I have to get it just right. I have to get it just perfect. And so I often produce little. That's why I think I started doing the poetry. The only way that I loosened up in order to do it was that I said, well, the stories aren't coming along. They're not getting finished. And I want to say something to the world each day. And so I sat down to say something, and surprise, it came out as a poem. And then I sat down the next day to say something, and it came out as a poem again and again and again. I was like, oh my goodness, I guess I'm a poet. And I'd written a little poetry before that, but I discovered it was kind of the way that I think. And um, so I wish that everything in my life was like that. It's like with the poetry, I tend to kind of think in symbols and in metaphors, and so it just kind of comes and but um, it's like there's too much pressure on all the rest. Um, but I appreciate you sharing your work, because it feels like there's something I need that is along the lines of what you're talking about. It's like I wish that I could produce um, lots and lots of work, be it good or bad, and that would be okay. I heard this quote by Stephen King. I've read a few things by Stephen King, but I'm not into horror. So, but I heard him say once that he started writing when he was 16, and he wrote short stories, and he put a nail in the wall for the rejection slips, and he just kept hanging the rejection slips, from the magazines he'd submit to, one after another on this nail. Eventually, the nail actually fell down because it was so heavy. And then he got a bigger nail, and he put it in the wall, and so that it could hold all the rejection slips. And I think it was like 21 or 22 when he finally had a story that was accepted. And I thought, right, right, that seems right. It's like you learn through experience, but for whatever reason, um, maybe a lot of us are like that. It's like it's hard to let go and let yourself do it imperfectly. But that's what we're watching you do, and it's looking pretty good. So
Thanks. Yeah, with rejection, it's really interesting when I started painting this way. So before I started painting this way, I used to get into every competition I entered, and I would usually like different art shows and things, and I would often win, and I would often be like the main one. But since I've been painting this way, yeah, I don't get into anything. It just doesn't fit with the normal mode, and it's hard to let go of that idea of success and that idea of just wanting things to be a certain way. In fact, again, another reason that I teach and work is so that I don't have to rely on this to live. That I can just, do whatever I want, and if something sells or if it touches somebody, that's good. But if it doesn't, it's still okay. And just
yeah,
having that freedom to fail, I guess you could say. Like when I've had times when I'm trying to live on my art. When I was doing this series a couple of years ago, I was in grad school and I wasn't working full time, and so we were in a situation where it was like a need, um, and now it's not a need. Like I can just whatever money I make, I can just donate all of it if I feel like it, or I can, I just try to pay attention to whatever needs of those around me come up, and I like being able to do that. But I think there has to be that freedom of failing for me, like that. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
Like even right now, I'm working on this, and I'm like, yeah, I totally took out way too much in that face. So it's and I'm just like, oh, I guess it just means it's not done yet, And some of them I purposely leave really messy, but like I said, right now I'm trying to go back through and just finish some of these up to a level that so. But yeah, I don't know if that helps or not. I think I need to. So you said one of the episodes has some of your poetry, Jonathan.
yeah. There was we did several where we would take a poem and we would go through it line by line. Um, the other thing, I have your email. I'll put you on my list. I usually will send an email when I publish a new poem, and I'll send you a link for my website, and you can kind of scroll down and I publish them as blog posts.
Okay,
I
yeah.
for was a link that had all the poetry, but I didn't keep up on linking every poem. But if you scroll down through the different blog posts, you'll see them. Greg, and go ahead.
Yeah. So what Emily and actually Jonathan's talking about, because I want to do what you see on some radio programs, is you insert an ad, and I don't have any male enhancement things or power lifting things to offer. I can't even paint like Emily. Well, I can with my fingers, but you won't like if the art galleries don't like hers, you're going to like mine even less. And so, well, look at my artwork right here. That's for sale right there. Well, what Jesus wanted me to do is draw attention. One of the ways you can fund Jesus TV, and you got 3 different people you can send money to. You could, but Emily has a pathway that's a conventional pathway. I have friends that are making tens of thousands of dollars doing paintings. And Emily sells her paintings. If you want to give her tens of thousands, that's fine. But tell them where they could buy your paintings, because that's her source of income for doing like what she's doing right now. Where could they go, Emily, if they say, I want one of those?
Probably the easiest way is just to find me on like social media, or just like Google my name, Emily Powell, and you'll be able to like find me. I sell most of mine through social media. Pre-COVID, I used to have a bunch in galleries, and I just didn't. I don't know. I like the personal connection more. So yeah, they can just find me on Instagram or on Facebook.
Yeah, and I have a friend.
Message.
Oh,
Yeah, one of your friends got one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one that we did last time, that one sold. When your friend contacted me.
Oh yeah, he loved it, and I loved it. I was so glad that he got it. And now it's on his website, linktojesus.org. It's his own little Jesus world. Okay, so so Emily has a pathway that you could donate and get something. Jonathan, you can get something, but both Jonathan and I, what we have isn't paintings, but Jonathan has poetry, and we have this. That's Jesus TV. So, Jonathan, tell them how they can send you money if they say, "I like that guy on the bottom. Let me send him some money, so that he can talk some more." Where would they send some money?
So there's I guess a couple ways. So I did actually publish one book. I've actually published a lot of poetry online, but I did publish a short book back in 2016. I'm actually hoping to put together some poetry compilations soon and make those available. And I'm hoping that there's a couple stories that may be close. So one's novel length and the other one's short story length. And so, but right now on Amazon, if you look up J.A. McCormick, you can buy that little green book. It's about the parable of the talents. Other than that, like Greg and I did this thing recently where we talked about tuppence, like the Mary Poppins song, tuppence a bag. And the idea is that we both say, well, if you can send us 50 cents, we'll try to spend part of that for ourselves and part of that to support what we do, and to find more people who resonate with what we do. So you can, I have a Venmo. You can send it to the Trackless Path, or you can send it to the tracklesspath@gmail.com is my PayPal. And so if you want to make a small donation or a large donation, that would be a blessing too. And go ahead, Greg, if you're going to share yours.
Well, I'd like to say that these advertisements are successful, because just this last week, I had told people my Venmo, Go Muller is what it is, GOMULLER on Venmo, or my PayPal is Go Muller, GOMULLER @gmail.com. That's the what's it called, PayPal. So, but it came through Venmo, and I'm going to reveal the identity of who sent me $20, unsolicited dollars. This guy really likes Jesus TV, and he's the guy on the low right there. He's the guy that has almost as much money as a homeless person. That's Jonathan. And so it broke my heart, touched my heart, and I knew it was from Jesus. And so when you said these things, that's our imagination is we're being fed by Jesus. Your hand, yes. Your pocket, yes. But your wallet, probably like mine, has a name written on it. If not literally like mine, it says Jesus on it. So if Jesus says, get in my wallet and send some money to Emily and buy that picture. How much is that picture, Emily?
Which one? The one I'm working on now?
Uh-huh.
Or the big one? The big one, well, the big one I was doing is already sold.
Yeah, commission.
But that one, yeah, that one's already sold. I just told them I'd have it finished by the first week in December. This one is, I mean, I don't have it measured exactly. This is probably around the $400 to $500 range.
All right. Well, there you go.
I have to admit, I mean, it depends whether or not you want the frame too or not. I don't know. I don't know. This one's not done yet.
So Emily's going to negotiate the price with you. It's in the $400 to $500 range, and this is yeah. Well, that was our ad. Is there anything else you want to say in the ad, Jonathan, before we dive back into our episode?
No, other than just I'm this is kind of new to both of us. The idea of it's been a strange walk, like a narrow walk, like because with the exception of my little job that I have that by some miracle I'm actually able to do, which is really seems like a miracle. It's been strange because it's felt like the thing I do that's to give benefit into the world that is my livelihood is also spiritual. So it's been a strange road, but I've actually felt at peace about the idea of just opening it up. The fact that if someone does want to help us, it's greatly appreciated. Greg and I spend a lot of time working on this stuff, and it means a lot to us when somebody appreciates what we do in such a way that they help us to live, and they help us to be able to feed the birds. It's like the song, the Mary Poppins song. It's like feed the birds, tuppence a bag. You know, the saints and apostles. That's what we want to do, is to use whatever gifts God's given us, whether it's money or whatever else, to take care of ourselves and put food in our mouths and our families' mouths, but also to feed the birds. You know, to feed those who are ascending to the divine. It's like the reason that my website is called The Trackless Path is that years ago I was told that, you know, the path to me is a trackless path. One cannot follow another, and the other cannot follow the one. It's not an earthbound path, and I'm always touched when God brings me into contact with somebody who is in a path of ascending, of seeking for God, and my desire is to share whatever I can that will point and give a framework to help, I guess. So, anyways, that's our work. I don't think I have anything more to say about it, but if someone wants to donate, they can do it there. So.
Yeah, and
I have something to say. I actually feel really weird saying like spend money. Like for me, you really don't have to. Like I was like, if the art touches you and you want to own it, then that's fine. But other than that, like I do okay financially. Like I'm okay. But if you want to support these other guys, go ahead.
well,
I think that would be a really good thing.
and I like that comment because I'm okay too. I'll tell you the funny thing is Jesus is actually showing his hand. He's taking care of me. So yesterday I had to go to the emergency room to get this thing stuck up in my nose so it stopped bleeding. And I got $100 from a person in Thailand who happens to be my daughter, who doesn't have a whole lot of money. Her and her family, if you went to Thailand, you say they live like Thai people. Yeah. And so it touched my heart. And my wife says, "Oh, should we send it back?" And I said, "Jesus says no," which hurts, kind of breaks my heart. But I told her, this is how Zion works, that it's going to be the low helping the low. And he showed me that. I've had people donate to me. It always breaks my heart. So I'll find out their story. I'm like, oh, you're the last person I want money from. Somebody lost their husband, raising daughters still. Jesus told them to send me money, and not a small amount. And I wanted to send it back. Jesus said, nope. And another person sent me $700. I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, it's always appreciated. It's like always needed because Jesus knows what my needs are. And I cry out to him. But this person is separated from his family. He's going through a born again experience. So he has some mania, he has depression. And God has called me to minister to him, but we end up ministering to one another. And whether he knows it or not, he's teaching me a pattern of what's coming. Because I know that there's people who live in nice houses, they're on the edge, and not a few. They're 1 or 2 mortgage payments from losing their house, which isn't their house, actually. It's owned by Citibank, and they've entered into a conventional agreement to have the American dream. What they've got is a house that Citibank owns, and they'll just pay on it, which is called being okay, because I'm okay with that. Jesus wants to stick me in a big house. That's fine. But that's not what he really wants to do right now that I own, that I pretend to own. Nope, I've been living with family now for many years because Jesus told me, go over and live in the barn. What? We had a nice house. Yeah, go live in the barn. And I could hear him. This was before getting born again. I could hear what he was telling me. So I acted on it. I will go, I will do. And it was been a strange, because your family doesn't get it. And that's been my path. When I got born again, he says, hang up your PhD. You're going to go to work as a handyman for $15 an hour. And so supporting a family, that's got to be weird for when you're the provider and your wife marries you thinking, oh, he's got a PhD. Woo! And it turns out this guy gets born again, and now he's being a handyman, and sometimes Jesus will say, yeah, don't charge that widow. I have to come home and go, there's no rabbits tonight, using a ancient parable. Yeah, Jesus said, let that rabbit go, because that's, and so, but that's how I got trained to trust him, because like Emily, I have food, clothing, shelter, tools, somebody to love. This is what Jesus will train all of his children to, a big, vast majority, is that's what's scripturally necessary. That's what God does for his children. You go back 500 years, what did God do when you worshiped him well? He would provide his children, generally speaking. Sometimes he wants them to fast all the way to death, but he will provide them food, clothing, shelter, tools, somebody to love. Those 5 things. He will provide them, and they are to learn to worship him and say, God is great. God is good. I feel good. I feel well. It is well with my soul. It is well with my family. And I'm telling you what, that's been a hard one. And I've had to, it breaks my heart continually crying to God, but I'm getting more and more used to it. And it has a familiar pattern that they call manna, that I will provide for you. Because that's really what Jesus has told me many times. I want to provide for you. I want to fight your fights. I want to be your sugar daddy. I don't think he said that, but that's how I interpret it. I want to be the one who takes care of your needs. Well, how does he do that? Jesus uses means. That means other people. And so, and in ways that I don't expect, like, oh, there's going to be a depressed millionaire watching this. I would be blown away if the millionaire gave anything. I like, oh, that does not fit the pattern. Do you know what fits the pattern? Some homeless person at Salt Lake, library watching this with tears streaming down his face. And he goes out and begs for me for a whole day and then sends me that money telling me his story. And I'm like, Jesus, that breaks my heart. But it's like, but it fits the pattern because that's what he's been doing. But it's partly because he's teaching me a pattern of what Zion will be like. And Zion is. This is called early Zion, like what we're doing Jesus TV, kind of on the down low. Yeah, this is not like one of those movies where you got, what do they call those, depressive post-apocalyptic things. So it doesn't look like that, but it does kind of look low and cheesy. But that's what God had to get me used to. And it's so Emily painting without a brush is like, whew. I guess metaphorically, I've been doing everything without a brush these days, using that as a parable. And Jesus insists, as you can see, I watch it go on Jesus TV and looked really sexy. Okay, yeah. Jesus says, I look fine. Jonathan said, oh my goodness, what do we got here? But Jonathan's known me for a while now. And when I first appeared to Jonathan, yep, Jesus didn't say, go get a new shirt on. This guy's going to freak about your shirt. He didn't say that. He says, go as you are. Now, I do change my shirt, by the way. If I'm on a date with my wife, God says, suffer it to be so for now. Leave your Jesus shirts that I write on with your hand and the Sharpie. Leave those and date your wife so that she can feel comfortable. But after that, my wife knows these are my favorite shirts because it says Jesus is bossing this job. It has a big yoke that says the yoke of freedom. It's, of course, it's the Jesus's cross. And on the back, it says break the yoke of bondage. I love those shirts. And about time to retire. So that's something I do have to sell, that you could pay me to write on your shirts. Jesus would be glad. You just have to ship them and give me the prepaid shipping label. I'll send them back after we write, because I too am an artist, but not as pretty as what Emily does. She's been doing a lot of it. I haven't done very many shirts, but I think I'm about ready to wrap this thought up. It was, yeah, we're still on the advertisement, and it sounds like we left the advertisement to worship our Lord. I hope that happens, that he turns this, he redeems the marketplace where we're okay with asking for money, but then we say these words, oh, don't send us any money unless Jesus tells you to, which is what I always say. Because then when I get the money, I'm like, well, okay, I told him not to send it. So there you go.
So I just want to interject a couple things. As kind of the timekeeper, we're at about 3:15. So I know, Emily, you usually have about an hour.
Oh, yeah.
And so we can close it up pretty soon.
Yep.
I was just going to say one last thing. You spurned it, Greg, and it'll be real quick. What was it?
That's fine. Take your time. That's what we have on Jesus TV, is lots of time.
Oh, goodness. I don't remember. If I remember, I'll do it before we close. But I think, Emily, do you have any last thoughts?
No, I'm
I've
just
really-
about to finish this one.
Watching your painting.
Can you
Sorry,
show
I'm
us,
cut out there for a second.
Emily, can you show that up to us up close so I can see, and your viewers? We've been kind of viewing it from afar. Maybe
Oh,
just
yeah, this painting. Yeah, hold on. Let me just do a couple of things on it. I'll be done pretty soon here.
You're fine. Yeah, see on Jesus TV, we're pretty relaxed. We don't have some alarm bell going off, unless it's the kids, and one of your kids start screaming. That's how Jesus will end the episode real quick. Emily,
Yeah, well,
how'd it go?
they're screaming in the other room, so it's okay.
Oh, that's fine. That's just messy. Yeah.
Yeah, they're fine. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I just kind of want to mess this one up. There's not really.
Jonathan, probably what you were going to say something about, I think, is Zion, the low helping the low. Is that, anyways? I thought.
Yeah, it was about that. Let me think about this. So it was the low helping the low. Oh, so I've thought a lot about money over the years. It's been an issue. And so many of my questions have been along those lines. And it's going to be fascinating to see what God brings. And it's something to talk about. I'll save most of it for the next time. But basically, just it's like in the meantime, we are kind of in this world where we all still need money, right? It's like we all still need some of it, but the whole economy of the world is shifting. People are doing more and more like on YouTube, it's like I can watch all these songs that before we had to pay for, or these different things. It's like the world is shifting, and it's at a tipping point, and we're coming to a place where it's like the people are going to do what they do, and it's like there's the world will revolve to a higher level. It's like it's and a key part of that, I'm sure there's many parts of it, but a key part of it is is uh is it's like a new economy. It's like and I don't know how it works, but I think we approach it whenever we give spiritual things like a preeminence, you know, and we just trust that God's going to provide. And I love that when I see that. It's like I get online and I listen to some beautiful song on YouTube, and it's like, and they've given it to me for free, and they'll say at the end, "Hey, if you want to go buy this song, it'd be really nice because I still need to eat." They don't say that, but that's the idea. Is Oh, she's showing us up close now.
Yeah, you can keep
Yeah, it
talking.
actually with it being messed up.
There's that white mark that goes right through his nose and his mouth, and it drives me insane. But I'm just gonna leave it. It's
I
just
like
like
it.
that.
Yeah, I like it.
Now.
It reminds me of those frescoes that are cracking. I kind of like that look.
Oh man, I would love it if this was cracking. And then here's the other one that I think this one's totally done now. This is a
It's
big one.
beautiful.
I'll probably call the person after this and send them a photo and be like, here's what I got.
Nice, nice.
It's so perfect.
It is. I like it. Makes me feel Jesus-y. Well, that's good. Any other final thoughts, Jonathan, Emily?
um, no, I think there's just when I first started painting this series a long time ago, you guys have talked a lot about money and stuff, and one of the thoughts that came to me repeatedly throughout this process is when I've been really worried about things financially or whatever in the past. The thought came to me. Jesus said, He said, "I work so you don't have to." Like He said, you don't have to worry about selling. You don't have to worry. So like I don't advertise my stuff. I still don't know how you guys found me because I haven't posted on social media hardly in years. And it's just like out of nowhere, and I'm okay with that. And I was just like, I think there's something to be said for the power of just letting go and trusting God and just knowing that it's all going to work out and it's all going to be okay. And like I said, I'm thankful I'm at a place now where it's like I told God that if He made it so that I could if we could live off of our normal incomes, that I'd be willing to give, whatever He asked. And so for me, it's just giving my time and talking about Jesus, or looking for those that I can donate and help. So yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, I like that. Any final thoughts, Jonathan?
It's the new economy. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like eventually. Like when the earth becomes celestial, I wonder if it's all going to be love. It's like we're going to do things and it'll just be because we love people. But we're in between. And so it's like we're finding our way. That's my feeling as far as the money goes. It's I'm so grateful to have a place in the world. I have a couple of people who are like patrons to me. I have one woman who just loves everything I write and who donates something every month and has been just an amazing blessing in my life. And I'm trying to serve those that love what I do. And I'm trying to do what God kind of told you, Emily. I'm trying to just trust that it's like that He's going to provide all of that, and I pray that He'll help me to do better at it. I don't always do. Sometimes I still have worries come up, but I pray that He'll help me to make my way in that, and seems like we're all trying to do that, and God bless us all. That it's like that it'll be something better that He's bringing to the world as we figure this out together, the world, how it can revolve to something better than just everything being about the bottom line. So
Yeah,
go ahead, Greg.
both of your comments bring to mind what Jesus told me. He said, Greg, he's often contrasting our culture, which he calls U.S. Antichrist, all is well in Zion, Babylon cult culture. You're in a cult. You grew up in a cult. Had you grown up in Greece in its heyday with naked people running around, and had you grown up in Mayan culture where they're cutting off heads and killing babies, that's the kind of culture that you live in. It's dressed up so it doesn't look that nasty, but he says that's the culture. And train up a child in the way he shall go in Babylon culture, and there's a high likelihood when he is old, he will not depart from it. So recently, Jesus told me, he said, one reason I have to be so rough on you, Greg, is because you're old. Your heart is so rigid. Like, oh, it's like a chiropractor. It's like, oh, when I've gone to a chiropractor, the chiropractor like, this is going to kind of hurt. You're really tight there, so I'm going to have to do this. And so when somebody's working you over like that, it's good to keep in mind, like, this has a purpose. So yeah, I just heard I think my bones just cracked, or, oh my goodness, now it hurts worse. Oh, well, that's better. And so in the process of learning to trust the divine chicane, the obstacle course that your life is, that is hard. And it's been hard for me. But he has a mission where he gives me words because I need the words. So if anybody else needs them, great. But I have to focus upon them. And so the words I'm about to tell you have to do with that, getting used to it. He said, and so he'll do these compare and contrast. Greg, in Babylon, what makes you well is you try harder. In Babylon, they try harder. In Zion, they trust deeper. So both of those imply an effort, but one's kind of like the effort of the heart. The other was the efforts of the hand and the head. So oftentimes you'll have to say, quit trying to figure this out. It's too complicated. You say you're using your head too much, or you're using your hands too much, or you're walking too fast. Slow down. Do I need to handicap you or what? And so today, obviously, to receive the blessings, because I did slow down. I'm like, okay, what are we doing today, Jesus? He's like, and he answered it. I mean, this was how I would typify it. Like, oh yeah, Jesus and I spent some time together. And I said, what are we doing today? And he said, I have a blessing to pour you down. Are you ready to receive it? Well, I'm not in the best condition, but let's try. And so, yeah, this thing that's up my nose really hurts. So, in fact, it's very uncomfortable. But what it made me have empathy for is people who walk around with allergies. I have not had allergies. That's not been my cross. Hallelujah. Because I think they feel like this every day. God bless them. And I like, Jesus, if you need to give me allergies, because this is the relationship I've studied with Jesus long enough now. I say, whatever you need to do, Lord, because I want to offer you up a broken heart and a contrite spirit. And I know that I have lots of resistances. I'm a dirty, filthy, rotten, hard-hearted, hopeful sinner. And those aren't my words. Well, they are, but they're Jesus's words. That's like him writing on my heart. Here's what you are, Greg. And I love you. Oh, Jesus, you love sinners? Yep. dirty, filthy ones, and rotten ones too, because I'm pretty rotten. Yes. But one of his favorite things about me is I'm a hopeful sinner. So I just keep coming back, coming back. He's like, there's the pattern. That's all I require. It's a gospel of try, Greg. So back to the phrase so you can keep it clear in your mind. In Babylon, they try harder. In Zion, they trust deeper. So may you, as you go forth this week and the rest of your life, exercise that. I'm trying to trust him deeper. Like, yeah. Any thoughts, guys? I'll let you guys have the last word.
Nope, I gotta get out now, but thank you guys, and we'll touch bases again.
Absolutely.